In the celestial realm of Takamagara, where the kami danced between clouds and stars, there lived a goddess whose laughter could crack the shell of night itself, Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto, the radiant spirit of mirth and dawn. She was unlike any other deity. Where others moved with solemn grace or thunderous pride, Uzume skipped barefoot across the heavens, her laughter trailing like music behind her. Her eyes sparkled like the morning dew catching first light, and her kimono shimmered in hues of sunrise, fiery oranges, soft pinks, and golds that seemed to dance of their own accord. Even the wind paused to ruffle her sleeves in playful greeting. Among the other kami, she was joy incarnate. In feasts, she was the first to sing, and the last to stop dancing. When tempers flared among the gods of war, she would appear with a smirk, a slapstick tumble, or a teasing song to unravel the knots of anger. Her presence was like warm sake in winter, comforting, unexpected, and brimming with boldness. Yet her laughter was not shallow. It came from a place of deep understanding, of knowing that even gods must sometimes let go of sorrow to survive the endless turning of the world. Her most profound contrast and dearest bond was with her sister in spirit, Amaterasu, the sun goddess. Where Amaterasu bore the burden of divine order and celestial illumination with a quiet, solemn dignity, Uzume danced in its glow with irreverent joy. Amaterasu was the sun's gravity, steady, essential, and revered, while Uzume was its first light, casting golden ribbons across mountaintops and coaxing flowers to open. Together, they formed a perfect duality, light with form and light with freedom. It was Uzume who could enter the places Amaterasu feared to tread. It was Uzume's voice that could beckon a smile from behind a veil of grief, and her outrageous antics that once lured Amaterasu from the cave where sorrow had sealed her away. Her magic was not of flame or storm, but of mood, a divine ability to uplift, to pierce gloom with laughter, to carry the hope of dawn even in the shadow of despair. Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto was the echo of sunrise in the darkest hours, the laughter that dances just outside a funeral's reach, the divine reminder that even the heavens must sometimes be silly, wild, and free. The heavens dimmed with a suddenness that left even the immortal breathless. One moment, Takamagara shimmered in golden brilliance, bathed in Amaterasu's radiant glow. The next, it plunged into shadow. Her light, once a constant over the realm, vanished as she withdrew into the sacred cave of Ama-No-Uzume, her grief sealing the sky shut like a stone lid over the world. The wind stilled. The birds, once jubilant messengers of the kami, fell silent. The clouds sagged heavy and gray. Even fire seemed to flicker with hesitation. Panic swept across the gods like wildfire. Susanoo, his rage cooled by regret, called out for his sister, but his voice was swallowed by the cave's silence. Storm deities whispered of imbalance, while harvest gods feared famine from endless dusk. The great celestial court gathered in worry, their divine forms dimmed by the absence of the sun. But amid the gathering gloom stood Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto, her expression unreadable. While the other kami wrung their hands or debated divine punishment, Uzume watched the cave entrance, her eyes reflecting the faint light of smoldering embers. Her lips, usually curved in mischief, were drawn into a tight line, but they twitched now and then, as if an idea stirred beneath her sorrow. She felt the chill in the air, the weight pressing down from a sky with no center, but she did not despair. She listened to the murmurs of the gods, the silence of the birds, the groan of branches unkissed by sunlight. And then, slowly, the corners of her mouth curled upward. Where others saw eternal night, Uzume began to see a stage. A stone, a song, a laugh, a mystery. She stepped away from the huddle of fearful deities toward the darkness, her bare feet light on the cold ground. Her heartbeat quickened not with fear, but with purpose. If Amaterasu would not return to the world, then Uzume would make the world so radiant, so absurd, so alive, that even the sun goddess would feel compelled to see it again. The darkness had fallen. But Uzume, the goddess of mirth, was about to make it shine. It began with sorrow, ignited by fury. The storm god Susanoo, in one of his wild rages, had desecrated the sacred halls of Amaterasu, his sister, the sun. He tore through her rice fields, defiled her weaving halls, and cast the flayed hide of a celestial horse into her court. Horrified and heartbroken by her brother's violence, Amaterasu, radiant goddess of the sun, fled from the heavens and sealed herself within Ama-No-Uzume, the heavenly rock cave. With a thunderous rumble, the stone door closed. And so, light vanished. A twilight veil fell upon Takamagara and the mortal realm below. Crops wilted. Rivers ran sluggish and cold. The kami wandered in confusion, and monsters began to stir in the shadows. Panic bloomed among gods and mortals alike, for without Amaterasu, the cycle of life itself began to fracture. The gods assembled near the cave's sealed entrance, but none dared approach it. Words failed. Pleas went unheard. Offerings turned to ash. Amaterasu's sorrow had become a fortress no wisdom or war could breach. Then came Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto, the goddess of dawn and mirth, clad in flowing robes and mischief, stepped forward. Her face bore no fear. Her heart, unlike the others, beat with laughter even in the void. As the gods fretted and argued, Uzume surveyed the solemn gathering, her eyes sparkling with a different kind of light, the lure of the absurd. She whispered to the other kami, gathering a mirror, the jewel of Yada no Kagami, and a sacred tree adorned with divine treasures. These she placed before the cave. Then, with a wink and a stretch, she mounted an overturned tub, setting it before the sealed cavern like a makeshift stage. And there, beneath a sky without sun, Uzume began to dance. Not with the grace of court ritual, but with wild, unpredictable glee.
She stomped. She spun.
She shook the trees with her hips and slapped her thighs with thunderclaps of joy. Her long sleeves twirled like streaks of fire. She flung off her robes with flair and laughter, revealing bare skin that shimmered with divine mirth. The gods gasped, but then chuckled, then roared. Her breasts bounced with each stomp. Her hair whipped through the air like lightning. The tub beneath her creaked and groaned, yet she danced harder, louder, bolder, till the heavens echoed with the thunder of the gods' laughter. And from within Ama-No-Uzume, Amaterasu stirred. "What," she asked in the darkness, "causes such joy in a world without my light?" She shifted the boulder just enough to peer out, and saw her reflection gleaming in the mirror Uzume had placed before the cave. For the first time in days, she beheld herself, radiant, regal, divine, and heard the laughter of the gods once more. Drawn by curiosity, Amaterasu inched forward. Seizing the moment, the mighty god Ame-no-Uzume pulled the stone door wide and yanked her into the open. Light exploded outward, as if the stars themselves exhaled. Warmth returned to the sky. Birds sang again. Shadows retreated into their holes. And Uzume, still laughing, bowed low. It was not force, not logic, but joy, wild, irreverent, beautiful joy, that brought the sun back to the world. Through her daring and her laughter, Uzume had restored balance, proving that even in the deepest darkness, a well-timed joke and a fearless heart could summon the dawn. From that moment on, Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto was no longer merely the goddess of mirth and dawn. She became a legend among both gods and mortals. The kami, who once saw her as a trickster spirit dancing on the edge of solemnity, now looked upon her with reverence. It was Uzume who had dared to act when all others stood silent. It was she who cracked the stone of despair with the chisel of laughter. Even the august Amaterasu, humbled by the mirror of her own reflection and the joy she had forgotten, offered her sister goddess a place of honor among the celestial court. In Takamagara, her name was now spoken not just in jest, but in gratitude. Her dance, once considered wild and irreverent, became sacred. Her laughter echoed in the halls of the gods like a warm breeze after rain. And below, in the mortal realm, her story took root like the first sprouts after a long winter. The people, struggling with their own cycles of darkness and rebirth, found inspiration in Uzume's defiance. They celebrated her not with stillness and solemn chants, but with rhythm, movement, and joy. Villages would gather to perform kagura, sacred dances in her honor, mimicking the steps she took on the overturned tub. Drums beat like thunder. Bells rang like laughter. Dancers adorned themselves in vivid robes and wild smiles, spinning through the night to call the morning. In rice fields and mountain shrines, in humble homes and grand festivals, they offered her sake and rice cakes, laughter and music, believing that through celebration, they too could ward off the shadows. For Uzume had shown them that joy is not frivolous, it is a weapon against despair. That humor, courage, and a little wildness have the power to change the world. And so, as each dawn broke, and the sun spilled golden light once more across sea and soil, both kami and mortals alike remembered the goddess who danced in darkness, and taught the world how to laugh toward the light. After the return of Amaterasu and the restoration of celestial order, Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto became more than a heroine of heaven. She became a living bridge between gods and mortals. No longer confined to the golden halls of Takamagara, Uzume began to move freely between the realms, dancing down beams of sunlight, riding the wind through blooming sakura trees, her laughter shimmering like bells in the air. Wherever she went, she brought lightness with her, not only in the form of dawn, but in the form of joy, movement, and release. In the mountain villages where fear of storms once silenced songs, Uzume danced barefoot under the rain, teaching farmers and children how to clap thunder into rhythm and twirl winds into laughter. At coastal shrines, she led fishermen's families in dances before voyages, teaching them to honor the sea kami not with fear, but with joyous respect. She taught that laughter is not disrespect, it is courage in the face of the unknown. As her influence grew, humans began to build sacred spaces not only of stone and wood, but of sound and story. Rituals once steeped in austerity bloomed into colorful processions. In fields and courtyards, people painted their faces, donned masks, and told tales through movement. The tradition of kagura, the divine performance, flourished, with Uzume often depicted as its heart, drumming and spinning with wild grace. She led many of these ceremonies herself. Clad in brilliant robes that shimmered like sunlight over rice paddies, adorned with bells and mirrors, she would dance in the center of a laughing crowd. Her presence ignited a contagious glee. Elders smiled despite aching bones, children giggled through their shy first steps, and even the grimmest warriors cracked a grin. Her voice, when she sang, was warm sake poured over a cold soul. In one village nestled in the shadows of sacred mountains, a long drought once threatened their harvest. The people gathered, hopeless, until Uzume arrived at dusk. Instead of prayers for rain, she taught them to dance as if the rains were already falling. They beat drums until the dust danced with them, shouted chants to stir the skies, and that night, the clouds wept joyfully. She whispered to mortals, "When you move with spirit, the heavens listen." Her legacy unfolded in every season. Spring flower dances, summer festival songs, autumn harvest stomps, and winter fire circle chants all bore her touch. Even now, when laughter rings through a shrine's courtyard or a drumbeat rolls across the hills at dawn, they say Uzume is near. She is the pulse of celebration, the sacred smile in hardship, the goddess who reminds us that joy is not the absence of fear, but the force that dances through it. And so, Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto continues to weave the heavens and earth together, not with power, but with joy. As the years passed and her name echoed through shrines and song, Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto often found herself standing alone beneath the twilight sky, where the colors of dusk blurred the line between day and night. It was in these quiet, golden hours that she reflected, not as the goddess of dawn or the savior of Amaterasu, but as a soul woven between opposites. She was not a warrior like the thunderous Susanoo, nor a sovereign like radiant Amaterasu. She held no sword, no law, no throne. Yet she had danced before gods when no one else could move. She had made the solemn laugh, had brought light not with force, but with feeling. And in this reflection, Uzume saw herself not as lesser, but as something rare, a bridge. A bridge between heaven and earth, where mortal feet and divine light could meet in shared rhythm. A bridge between reverence and joy, where sacredness need not silence laughter. A bridge between despair and dawn, where a simple step forward, a single beat of a drum, could guide even the sun from hiding. Beneath the moon, she would smile, not with pride, but with peace. She had no temple larger than the human heart, no army but the pulse of song. And yet her presence moved through the world like wind through rice stalks, gentle, constant, essential. For Uzume knew now, the divine does not only shout in thunder or command in silence. Sometimes it laughs, it dances, it listens with open arms. And in doing so, it heals. Thus, with every laugh shared around a fire, every child's first joyful spin in festival rhythm, Uzume walked the space between, carrying the torch of joy into every corner where light was most needed. In an age when shadows grew long and the world trembled with unrest, when storms tore across villages and spirits of malice stirred in forgotten corners, the people turned not only to warriors or sun gods, but to one whose power had long been underestimated. Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto, once known simply as the goddess of mirth and dawn, now walked as a guardian spirit, her footsteps echoing like distant drums across darkened roads. No longer just the bringer of laughter, she had become the bearer of courage in disguise. Where children cried in fear of tempests, Uzume would appear at the threshold, swirling ribbons of sunlight from her sleeves, her voice rising in song. Her melodies, sweet and defiant, cut through thunder like blades of brightness, stilling the winds and coaxing calm into frightened hearts. The storm would falter, as if embarrassed by its tantrum, and the people would know she had passed by. When lost souls wandered forests thick with fog, her laughter would ring between the trees, not mocking them, but guiding. Lights in the shape of dancing foxes or whirling lanterns would flicker ahead, playfully beckoning the way home. Travelers would speak of how, just when despair took hold, they heard a chuckle like a bell in wind, and suddenly the path would clear. Even in the realm of spirits and yokai, Uzume's mischief was legend. Where other kami fought with blades and seals, Uzume faced darkness with a grin. She would mock evil spirits with comic impressions of their snarls, puff her cheeks like oni, or perform wild dances so absurd that even the foulest beings shrieked, not with rage, but with confusion, and fled into the void, unable to withstand the force of joy that did not fear them. Her boldness was not born of arrogance, but of something rarer, an understanding that fear itself was a mask, and laughter could strip it away. She protected not by destroying, but by reminding the world how to live without chains. Her power was subversive, surprising, and sacred. And so, shrines began to depict her not only in flowing silks and dancing pose, but also with a flute held firm, a knowing smile, and lanterns lit around her feet. Festivals turned solemn prayers into jubilant parades. She had become a divine paradox, the gentle flame that pushed back the cold, the bright spirit that even darkness could not mock. In every song sung against sorrow, in every dance defying despair, Uzume was there, the protector who laughed in the face of fear and taught mortals to do the same. Though the centuries have passed, and the great tales of the kami now echo as legend, Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto's spirit has never faded. Her name, once chanted beneath sacred trees and starry skies, now lives on in the rhythm of taiko drums, the swirl of festival dancers, and the laughter shared beneath lantern light. In the present age, amid steel cities and glowing screens, Uzume's essence flickers still. Artisans paint her in vivid hues, half smile, half sunrise, adorning shrines, fans, and festival floats. Her figure dances across snow stages and kabuki theaters, each movement telling the story of her courage masked in mirth. During spring's first bloom, villagers and city dwellers alike don vibrant robes to honor her with the kagura dances, sacred performances born from her divine mischief. The dancers spin, leap, and stomp, not in solemn prayer, but in unbridled celebration, knowing that reverence need not always whisper, it can roar with drums and ripple with joy. In times of personal darkness, loss, fear, doubt, it is Uzume's name that is whispered over incense and woven into festival chants. She is the one invoked to lift heavy hearts, to guide souls out of shadows with warmth instead of warning. Her image is kept in charms by those seeking courage to speak, to smile, to begin again. And in quiet corners of modern shrines, where old stones meet soft neon, one might hear a gentle laugh on the wind or see a fox-shaped light flicker in the trees. The faithful know what it means. Uzume has not gone. She dances still. For even now, in a world ever-shifting, the goddess who drew out the sun with laughter continues to shine, as guardian of joy, as spirit of boldness, and as eternal reminder that light need not always be fierce. Sometimes it dances. The eternal dance of Uzume, a concluding chapter as the ages turned and empires rose and fell, many kami faded into myth, their voices quieted by time's tide. Yet Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto, the goddess of mirth and dawn, did not vanish into silence. Her tale, unlike those forged in blood or conquest, was etched in laughter, rhythm, and light, and it endured in the pulse of celebration, in the heartbeat of joy. Though she never bore a sword nor ruled from a throne, Uzume's legacy was written across the land in brighter ink. In the rolling hills of Japan, hidden among bamboo groves or nestled at the edges of bustling cities, stand shrines unlike any other, small, sunlit, adorned with bells and fluttering streamers. These are the shrines of Uzume, where laughter is a sacred offering and music is a form of prayer. Children laugh freely there unshushed. Dancers perform wild, joyful movements on wooden stages. Women in colorful robes twirl beneath paper lanterns, imitating Uzume's legendary dance that once stirred Amaterasu from the darkness. Even silence, when it comes, feels full, not empty, a pause before the next joyful note. Each year, during the festivals held in her name, performers and pilgrims gather beneath the stars. Kagura dancers channel Uzume's spirit, stepping in rhythm to the ancient drums, their laughter woven into the chants. Comedians, storytellers, and mischief makers take to the stage not just to entertain, but to embody the divine, reminding all who watch that wisdom can wear a smile, and healing can come in the form of joy. The elderly light candles in her honor. The fearful whisper to her for courage. Artists invoke her name before stepping on stage. And in all these acts, Uzume lives again and again, renewed in every act of bold expression and joyful defiance. She became eternal not through the clash of blades, but the sound of clapping hands and stomping feet. Not through conquest, but through communion. Not through fear, but through laughter that echoes across the threshold between gods and mortals. And so her tale remains, a living myth, reminding the world that the brightest dawn may follow not solemn prayer, but a fearless dance in the dark. That laughter is not lesser than might, but a sacred power in its own right. And that in a world that often forgets to smile, Ame-no-Uzume-no-Mikoto still dances, inviting us to join her. In her story is the enduring truth. Joy is strength. Laughter is courage. And wisdom, sometimes, wears bells on her ankles.